Hi, is it possible to get from Mondstadt to Inazuma just gliding? In this video we delve deep into this question. As you might have guessed already by the length of the video, we're not just answering this question, we're also getting into the intricacies of gliding, analyzing and optimizing the factors that affect it, and even questioning the meaning of gliding itself. Before we begin, some disclaimers. First, yes, I'm resinless. Don't believe your eyes if at some points of the video you see a number different of 0 for the resin on my map. Second, this video was a long-term project. I had the idea since around version 4.3 and it's being published in 6.7. In the meantime, the gliding meta hasn't changed that much, to be honest, but it might explain if I do some things in a weird order. Third, the wording of the title is intentional. We won't be talking about flying in this video. Why? Because the phlogiston and night soul transmission mechanics of Natlan are completely broken for exploration, and with a combination of Mavuika, Ifa and Chaska, you can even reach the upper vertical limit of the path. The fake sky is real, I guess. We're sticking ourselves to gliding. And the final fourth disclaimer, no glitches will be used. So, to begin, the place chosen for departure was Dragonspine in Mondstadt. More specifically, the top of the celestial nail above the peak. It's quite an iconic location, and probably more than one person tried to see how far they could get gliding the first time they got there. Most importantly, that point is tall as hell, possibly the tallest point in Tevat before the tonnage of Natlan was released in version 5.2, and we'll need that height to get as far as possible. The objective destination will be Watatsumi Island, because it looks pretty much like the closest point of Inazuma from Dragonspine. It's conveniently placed directly at the south, for which I have good visual markers, and it would be awesome to arrive gliding down to Enkanomiya. With that out of the way, let's explain the three main factors that affect gliding. Gliding is basically a motion composed of continuous fall down the y-axis and continuous translation through the x-axis. All of this while getting tired. So, we can mention height as the first factor. For this, it's important the initial height, which we already established, and we can increase it with different gadgets and character skills. The second factor is the speed at which we can move in the x-axis. To improve it, we can also use gadgets and characters' talents. Finally, the stamina is an important factor which we can limit the amount of time we can glide. According to the wiki, 3 points of stamina are consumed per each second gliding, meaning that for the limit of 240 stamina, we can only glide for 80 seconds, rendering useless all the height we might have left for extra gliding before touching the ground. Fortunately, certain gadgets, characters' talents, dishes and even weapons can help in this regard. Now that we are aware of these factors, we can begin gliding. We'll use Durin for the initial glides because we're departing from Dragonspine, and also to feel bad that he doesn't use his wings to glide. Let's begin with the y-axis optimisations, and only on those of the initial height. To obtain greater initial height, different methods can be used. Geoconstructs, such as the pillars of GeoNC or John Lee, the flower from Albedo, Kachin-like elemental skills, or Shanyun's burst for higher jumps. Additionally, the Mondstadt gadget Wind Catcher from version 1.1 produces upwards wind currents in the same fashion as Venti's elemental skill. Let's compare the gliding after using the height advantage given by the GMC and the Mondstadt gadget. As expected, the initial height didn't matter, because as long as the stamina is the limiting factor in the gliding, the initial height won't affect the distance covered. Besides, there are reports online guessing the height of Dragonspine to be around 600 meters. Keep this between us, gaining 4 or 5 meters of initial height won't be too meaningful in the final result, considering the distance between Mondstadt and Inazuma to be around, 4,000 meters or something. But since we're about optimization, I thought that mentioning these factors. The last combination might be Albedo's flower with Shanyun's elemental skill, or maybe a high constellation wanderer Chaska. I don't really know, I don't have the characters. but as I have said, it's not very important. Okay, let's move on to the gliding speed. As of today, there are only two means of increasing it. The first one is the Inazuma gadget released in 2.0, the red feather fan, which increases the gliding speed by 30% for 30 seconds. You can really feel the speed when you use it. The second one is the much later released Shen Yun's exploration talent, which gives an unconditional party-wide 15% gliding speed. Later, Ororon was given the same passive, but in the day I still pulled Shen Yun because of this. Let's compare and use both methods. We can say that for our stamina situation, the fan is better than the speed passive, but the longer the glide is, the more relevant the passive becomes, since we can refresh the fan while gliding. When combined, the result is a bit better than the red feather fan alone, but it's somewhat underwhelming, to be honest. I suppose that the speed increments aren't simply additive. Anyway, the main issue is that we're still far away from Inazuma and the stamina continuously limits our glides, so let's focus on dealing with that. Stamina consumption can be dealt with different strategies. Some dishes allow for 20 or 25% gliding stamina consumption reduction, such as the Barbatos stew. The exploration passives of Venti, Kole and Amber reduce it by 20%. An emo resonance of the team reduces it by 15%. The movement speed it provides doesn't affect the gliding speed though. And finally, introduced in version 5.2 and possibly being the last important change in the gliding meta, the limited 4-star bow flower wreathed flowers diminishes 15% the stamina consumption, while gliding only to the active character. This went actually under my radar and I didn't pull for it until version 6.5. Fortunately, refining it doesn't increase the reduction, but I had to spend 50 wishes to get a single copy. Quick reminder to avoid pulling specific 4 stars whenever possible. In the screen you can see the effect of different reductions mentioned. The 20% reduction alone is better than all of our previous optimizations of height and speed, but the best issue about these reductions is that they are completely stackable. That means that a total of 75% stamina consumption reduction can be achieved. If they ever released an extra 25% reduction, we'll reach 0 stamina emissions glides. Okay, so let's combine what we have now and see how far we can go. We'll also switch to the gliding champion Amber for these tests. These are the kind of changes we need to get far. We got across the Guyon stone forest and we can even see Inazuma ahead. Let's add the height and speed optimizations and check how far is it possible to get in a single gliding. So, in the end, we crossed completely the Guyun Stone Forest and got to the same latitude as Livia Harbor, but we're still as far as hell from Inazuma. We'll need some changes in the strategy. Let the gliding with interruptions research begin. For the sake of the video, we'll define interrupted gliding as that which involves stopping the gliding for a reason and then resume it. Okay, so first a little prelude. I'll showcase how gliding with only one interruption can increase the distance covered. For this, the best option is to simply increase the stamina we have by using a dish. The stamina can be refilled every 5 minutes in different quantities, according to the dish served. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 85, 100 and 130. The results are increasing as expected, but since we didn't have too much height left after we failed previously, I'll upload a different video later with the longest glide possible with only one interruption. Okay, back to Dragon Spine. Since from now on we're going to allow interruptions while gliding, it's time to address the two giant, enormous, gargantuans, elephants in the room. There's nothing left for us to optimize in the gliding speed department, but in the height, how about we stop focusing only on the initial height and try to gain height while gliding? Is it even possible? Enter the Fountain Gadget and Kadehara Kazuha. The wind-powered wind generator is a gadget introduced in version 4.0 which allows the player to create an upwards wind current that lasts for 3 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. Staying in the current also helps to recover up to 25 stamina, according to the wiki. Its impact on gliding has been enormous, and it's the best free-to-play option to reach further distances. We'll prove that soon. It must be said that a bit of skill is involved. Since we want to be as high as possible all of the time, exiting the current at the 3-second limit is important. On the other hand, Kadehara Kazuha is a 5-star animo unit introduced in 1.6, whose elemental skill can group enemies, but most importantly, it can be used mid-air to gain some height, advance a tiny amount frontwards, and refresh a bit of stamina. Both of these can be used as many times as the cooldowns allow from the moment you are airborne. Xiao's elemental skill works this way too, but its longer cooldown and the lack of height increase is worst for traveling long distances, so Kazuha will become our new main glider. Let's see how far we can get with our new goats on the glider. Okay, so Kazuha so far seems a bit underwhelming. He just got a bit further than any other character gliding, probably due to better stamina economy. But let's remember that it doesn't matter too much as long as stamina is the limiting factor. Let's focus on the Fountain Gadget. Man, it won't stop. We're reaching far, yeah. Wow, so we managed to surpass a bunch of previous optimisations just with one single gadget. Impressive. We're still fairly far from Inazuma, but let's finally see how far we can get by combining Kazuha's skills with the Fountain Gadget. we get more or less to the same limit, but with a lot more of height left. Time to add in some stamina consumption reduction. We can see that just by adding amber, we can permaglide, recover stamina faster than we consume it. Nice. Alright, this is the stuff we need. This is why they both are the GOATs. We've actually surpassed the middle point, I think. Inazuma can be seen and seems closer than ever. All we can do now is to hope that applying the other optimisations, and particularly the gliding speed increase, can lead us there. Time to check it. So no, we couldn't make it. We're possibly about 3/4 of the way in or more, but it's difficult to imagine where else we can make an improvement. All hope is left, unless... Oh man, you gotta be kidding me. As it turns out, Kazuha's first constellation decreases his elemental skill cooldown a nice 10%. If we add the Animal Resonance 5% reduction, his tap skill cooldown goes from 6 seconds to 5.1, which can definitely be significant in giving us more height through a long glide, and might even pair better with the Fountain Gadget cooldown. So yeah, I pulled for his constellation. At least it was just the first one, but I failed the 50/50s and went deep into both C0 and C1 pools to get him to that point. Also, it was a very cheap move not to include him in the eligible roster of all characters' constellations. He's not even that broken. Anyway, enough ranting. Time to activate the constellation.
Into the wind, as one with wind and cloud.
Hey, skill refresh. With this last minute, very costly optimization, let's check if we can get to Watatsumi once and for all.
Follow the wind.
Okay, so don't get me wrong, it's definitely an improvement, but we're still far from the coast. So close, yet so far. Okay, so then I should probably end the video. Alright, maybe, and just maybe, I've been a little bit too tunnel-sighted with trying to reach Watatsumi Island. It's not possible that there is a closer point to Dragon Spine than that, is it? Okay, so yeah, according to my ruler, the distance to Rito is actually shorter. Pointing to that tiny island is more difficult than pointing just south, but it might be even possible to land there with our method. Alright, I reference once again the third disclaimer. The title is not misleading. We're getting from Mondstadt to Inazuma at the end of the day. Huh? Enough yapping, let the glider do the talking now.
Follow the wind. 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 Follow the wind.
Let's go! We made it to Inazuma. Kazuha is back home, baby. You can even see the point from which we came. Okay, before the conclusion, let's speak about what just happened there in the end. I tried gliding as straight as possible and different optimizations in the combination of the Fountain gadget and Kazuha skill, but I could never really get to the island. But it was so close that I decided that it was time to swim. The swimming meta is actually fairly simple. I can even draw it for you. Strictly speaking, if you refill stamina with a dish and wait for the 5-minute cooldown, you can permanently swim, because not moving in the water doesn't consume stamina, unlike gliding. Wait, what is this logic? Have you ever tried to keep your body vertical and your head above water where you don't touch the ground for 5 minutes? That gets tiring. Anyway, that strategy is kind of lame, and we don't like it. I know I shut off the visual indicators, but definitely both the Beidou passive and the Scoffier dish were indispensable for reaching the island. Thank you, Pirate Captain. Thank you, esteemed chef. And thus we made it to the conclusions. Let's answer 3 questions. First, is it possible to get from Mondstadt to Inazuma in a single, straightforward, uninterrupted glide? No, you'll actually won't even reach the halfway point. Now to the question of the beginning of the video. Is it possible to get from Mondstadt to Inazuma just by gliding? No, or at least I can do it even with interrupted gliding. Maybe a task can? And finally, the question of the title of the video. Is it possible to get from Mondstadt to Inazuma without teleporting, a ship, Furina, or refilling stamina? Yes, it is possible since version 5.6, combining interrupted gliding and uninterrupted swimming. With that, we get to the end of the video. I can't wait for it to be obsolete next month, if they release some other crazy gadget in Snaya, or maybe another Animo unit like Kazuha or Xiao, or even another utility passive for gliding. That's life, I guess. If that happens, I'll try to get my hands on those assets and record the gliding process, but I don't think I'll add commentary to it. I hope that you have more resin than me and that you enjoyed the video. Bye!